segment 2.4 alef. שב על הכיסא אשר אחרי השולחן. שב על הכיסא אשר אחרי השולחן. Have you ever had the experience of being invited to a dining event as a guest, beginning to mill around the dining table, but feeling a bit awkward, not knowing where you should sit? One of the signs of a host that makes their guests comfortable is knowing how to help the guests find the appropriate place to sit. This segment will equip you as a host to help your guests find their place at the table. As indicated in the segment title phrase, some of the words which will be very important for this sort of communication are called prepositions. Words such as al, on or upon, acharei, behind. So that we may employ Hebrew prepositions appropriately, there are a few pointers that you will find helpful. First of all, be aware that there are a cluster of Hebrew prepositions which very comfortably and routinely stand alone, independent prepositions. In contrast to this, there's another group of prepositions which never stand alone. They must be joined to another word. Their position will always be in front of the next word in the phrase, such as the preposition be, meaning in, combined with tzoror, a pouch, resulting in the compound word bitzoror, in a pouch. A third group of prepositions, while formally independent, that is to say they will never be joined seamlessly to another word, will routinely be connected to the next word by the use of the makef, that is, the hyphen. To this point, you've seen a makef used to signal when a couple of nouns are joined in construct, as in lechem David, the bread of David, or David's bread. Now you will see the makef used to indicate that a certain preposition is joined closely to the ensuing word. Here then is a handful of the most useful prepositions. To indicate their importance, they do fall under a heading milim la'anot, extremely useful in growing comfortable in reading the Hebrew Bible. As you memorize these, you might want to just hive off a few at a time instead of trying to learn them all in one fell swoop. Cluster a few, learn them, come back after a couple of hours or a day and tackle a few more. Here is a suggestion that may make memorizing these prepositions much easier for you. Select one preposition and then generate your own prepositional phrase using some of the nouns, the objects that you already know. Suppose you were wanting to memorize al, meaning on or upon. Don't memorize it alone, but lock it into your memory with the help of the phrase al hakiseh, on the chair. Visualize something or someone being on a chair. Perhaps you'll want to take a piece of bread, lechem, place that bread on a chair and say to yourself, lechem al hakiseh, bread on the chair. For the preposition el, perhaps you'd want to associate this with motion toward a place, such as el Nineveh. Memorize it not simply as el alone, but lock it in with the use of the phrase el Nineveh, to or toward Nineveh, and as a result, that preposition will be yours. Here then are the prepositions. Achar, acharei, achar, acharei. Please take time to read the footnote. El, be, betoch, ke, le, lifnei, min, me'al, mitachat, neged, ad, ad, al, al, aliad, aliad, im, im, tachat, tachat.
Please turn to the corresponding portion of the appendix, Shtaim Nikud Arba Nikud Aleph, for more information. Here then is the appendix portion, Shtaim Nikud Arba Nikud Aleph. Let's begin with some observations regarding how the makef influences accentual units. Any isolated Hebrew word, as you know, contains one primary accented syllable. Routinely, this is the last syllable unless otherwise indicated by a raised chevron appearing above one of the other syllables. The point to realize regarding a makef is this. When two or more words are joined by a makef, that entire phrase enjoys only one primary accented syllable. It occurs in the same routine place, the last syllable, unless otherwise indicated by a raised chevron appearing over one of the other syllables. Once again, a string of words linked by a makef enjoys only one primary accented syllable. That may seem unimportant, and indeed it's not a major point, hence its relegation to the appendix. However, it explains why we will find that some words which are followed by a makef then experience a change in one of the vowels. Take, for example, the command lech. Notice the tzere. When that is followed by a makef, it reduces to a segol, lech. Consequently, the phrase lech lecha, lech lecha. Similarly, a cholam, when it appears in a word that becomes followed by a makef, will change to a chametz chatuf. That's why the isolated word shemor, meaning guard, and notice the cholam following the mem, when that word is followed by a makef, it changes to a chametz hatuf, shemor na. With our present pronunciation, we will not be able to detect any difference between shemor with a cholam and shemor na with a chametz hatuf, but you will certainly see it in the spelling. Let's continue in the appendix with the next heading. How the shava in b, k, and l may modify depending on the next syllable. First of all, notice that when attached to a word beginning with a guttural and a compound vowel, the preposition will adopt the corresponding full vowel. That is why the word ba'asher begins with beit followed with patach, not beit followed with shava. Similarly with the second word, emet. Guttural aleph followed by the compound vowel chatef segol picks up the segol and lends it to the preceding preposition be, be'emet. And third, oniyah, begins with the guttural aleph followed by a chatef kametz. Chatef kametz has within it a kametz, and it will lend that kametz to provide the vowel following the beit, so that we have beit followed by kametz. Now, in the case that the next vowel is a chatef kametz, pronounced o, this influences the preceding vowel, the preceding kametz, to be a kametz chatuf, also pronounced o. That is why this word is pronounced bo-oniyah, bo-oniyah. Second, when attached to a word whose first vowel is a shava, the preposition's shava becomes a chirek. Consequently, notice the word tzaror, whose first vowel is a shava. When the preposition be with its own shava is combined with tzaror, which begins with a shava, then the double shava combination which results changes into hirik and shava. That is why we have bitzaror. Bitzaror. And third, with a yod shava, as in Yehuda, Yehuda, then the prefixed preposition begins with a hirik, bi, and the yod loses its weak shava. The initial vowel that we have, therefore, is simply a hirik yod, bihuda, bihuda. The last appendix topic in segment Shtaim Nikud Arba Nikud Aleph involves how the preposition min may modify its spelling. As you probably recognize by now, the letter nun is an exceptionally weak letter. Consequently, in certain situations, the preposition min will lose its final letter nun and will actually prefix the remaining mem with a vowel to the ensuing word. If, for example, the ensuing word begins with a yod followed by a shava, the nun of min will be lost, the hirik retained and combined with that yod of the next word, resulting in min hirik followed by the other word, such as mihuda, a combination of min plus Yehuda, mihuda. If the ensuing word begins with resh or a guttural, oftentimes min will become the syllable me, mem plus tsere. That's what's going on with the compound word me'ra'ah. That's actually min plus ra'ah, which begins with a resh. The situation is similar with me'ir. That's a combination of min followed by the noun ir. Notice that ir begins with a guttural. Since the definite article ha is a guttural, it may transform a preceding min to me, and that's what we find in a word such as me hamelech. Notice how it's written without any spaces in Hebrew. That consists of the preposition min followed by hamelech. Me hamelech. Having said that, we will also encounter the same idea expressed without combining min directly to the ensuing noun. Min hamelech is very legitimate Hebrew. Notice there that it is, however, connected by a makef. And last is a principle which you will find very often in biblical Hebrew, namely this. Before other consonants, consonants other than a guttural, you will find that the nun of min is lost but leaves behind a dagesh in the ensuing consonant. Notice then the compound word mimelech, mimelech. Notice in particular the dagesh in the mem of melech. That is signaling that there used to be a nun. Min melech became mimelech, leaving behind a dagesh in the first consonant of the noun melech. This concludes the appendix discussion of segment Shtaim Nikud Arba Nikud Aleph. Let's now return to the main portion of the textbook. Don't worry if you can't recall all those particular features explained in the appendix. Just make a note to yourself where that information may be found so that you can refer back to it when you encounter a word that you suspect may be explained in that material. Now please notice the 5 prepositional phrases that are presented before you. Write down the Hebrew numeral in the column to the left in order to indicate your answers in this matching activity. Here then are the words: El Nineveh, El Nineveh, Bichli, Bichli, Ad Tarshish, Ad Tarshish, Al Hashulchan, Al Hashulchan, Al Kiseh, Al Kiseh. To conclude segment Shtaim Nikud Arba Nikud Aleph, Please consider the spelling of the first two consonants in each word pair that you see below. Notice that the first in each pair is indefinite, while the second is definite. You can hear that difference as you read them aloud. Bichli, bakali. Again, bichli, bakali. Belechem and balechem. Again, belechem, balechem. Please take time to get acquainted with the word asher. It may be variously translated who, if referring to a person, which or that, if referring to an inanimate object. You see it in the title phrase, asher, acharei hashulchan. Please read over the associated footnote so that you'll be aware of some of the other meanings which can be connected with the word asher, meanings other than its function as a relative pronoun.